Prova, test, prova. Ok. Quanta barba. Ta-ta-ra-ta-ta-ta-tum. Ta-ta-ra-ta-ta-ta-tum. Ta-ta-ra-ta-ra-ta-ta-ra-ta-ra-ta-ta-ta. Ta-ta-ra-ta-ta-ta-tum. Ta-ta-ra-ta-tam-ta-tam. Ta-ta-ra-ta-ra-ta-ta-ra-ta-ra-ta-ta-ra. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Okay, welcome back, people, to the two who were watching my previous audiobook. Today we continue Quag Keep, the first novel ever written of Dungeons and Dragons and the Greek setting also. Quag Keep is a book of Andrew Norton, and last time we read the first chapter. Today we go on with the second, I don't know, maybe third, I don't really know. So, let's start. Chapter 2, Wizards' Wiles. The newcomer approached them directly. His pale face above the high-standing collar of his cloak marked him as one who dwelt much indoors by reasons of necessity or choice. And too, his features were human enough in their cast. Still Milo, seeing their impassivity, the tiness of his bloodless lips, the sharp big curve of his nose, hesitated to claim him as a brother man. His eyelids were near closed, but as he reached the table, he opened them widely, and they could see that his pupils were of no human color, rather dull red like a smoldering coal. Save for those eyes, the only color about him was the badge sewn to the shoulder of his cloak. And that was so intricate that Milo could not read its meaning. It appeared to be an entwining of a number of wizardly runes. When the newcomer spoke, his voice was low-pitched and had no more emotion than the monotone of one who repeated a set message without personal care for its meaning. "You are summoned." "By whom and where?" Neil growled and spat again, the flush on his broad face darkening. "I have taken no service." Milo caught the berserker's arm. "No more have I, but it would seem that this is what we have waited." For in him that expectancy, which had been building to a climax now blended into confusion, he could not withstand. For a moment it seemed that the berserker was going to dispute the summons. Then he swung up his fur cloak and fastened it with a boar's head buckle at his throat. "Let us be gone then," he growled. "I will see an end to this bedazzlement, and that speedily." The pseudo-dragon chittered shrilly, shooting its tongue at the messenger, as if it would have enjoyed impaling some part of the stranger on that spear point. Again Milo felt the nudge of spinning dice at his wrist. If he could only remember. There was a secret locked in that armlet, and he must learn it soon, for as he stood now, he felt helplessness like a sharp-set wound. They came out of Arvel's Hawks on the heels of the messenger. To the upper part of the city was well lighted. This portion was far too shadowed. Those who dwelt and carried out their plans here knew shadows as friends and defenses. However, as three of them strode along, they followed a crooked alley where the houses leaned above them as if eyes set in the upper stories would spy on passers-by. Milo's overactive imagination was ready to endow those same houses, closed and barred against the night and with seldom a dim glow to mark a small paned window, with knowledge greater than his own as if they snickered slyly as the three passed. Before they reached the end of the thieves' quarter, a dark form slipped from an arched doorway. Tug he had no warning from the armlet. Milo's hand instantly soaked his sword hilt. Then the newcomer fell into step with him, and the very dim light showed the green and brown apparel of an elf. Few, if any, of that blood were ever drawn into the ways of chaos. Now better light from a panel above the next door made it plain that the newcomer was one of the woods, woods. His long bow, unstrung, was at his back, and he bore a quiver full of arrows tight packed. In addition, both a hunter's knife and a sword were sheathed at his belt. But most noticeable to the swordsman on his wrist, he too wore the same bracelet that marked the berserker and Milo himself. Their guide did not even turn his head to mark the coming of the elf, but kept ahead. At a gliding walk which Milo found, he must extend his stride too much. Nor did the newcomer offer any greeting to either of the men. Only the pseudo-dragon turned its gem-point eyes to the newcomer and trilled a thin, shrill cry. Elves had the common tongue. Though sometimes they disdained to use it unless it was absolutely necessary. However, besides it and their own speech, they also had mastery over communication with animals and birds, and, it would seem, pseudo-dragons. For Niall's pet or comrade had shrilled what must be a greeting. If the elf answered, it was by mind talk alone. He made no more sounds than the shadows around them, far less than the hissing slip of their guide's footgear, which was oftentimes drowned out by the clack of their own boot heels on the pavement. They proceeded into wider and less winding streets, catching glimpses now and then of some shield above a door to mark a representative of Blackmare, a merchant of substance from Urnst, or the lands of the Holy Lords of Faraz. So the four came to a narrow way between two towering walls. At the end of that passage stood a tower. It was not impressive at first, as were some towers in Grey Oak. The surface of the stone facing was lumpy and irregular. Those spokes and rises, Milo noted, when they came to the single door facing the alley that had brought them and could see the door light, were carving as intricately enfolded and repeated as the patch upon their guide's cloak. From what they could distinguish, the stone was not the local greyish tan either, but instead a dull green, over which wandered the lines of yellow, adding to the confusion of the carven patterns in a way to make the eyes ash of one tried to follow either carving or yellow vein. He whom they followed laid one hand to the door, and it swung immediately open, as if there was no need for bars or other protection in this place. Light, one yet brighter than they had seen elsewhere, flowed out to engulf them. Here were no baskets of fire wasp. This light steamed from the wall themselves, as if those yellow veins gave off a sickly radiance. By the glow Milo saw that the faces of his companions looked as palely ghost-like as those of some leash serving chaos. He did not like this place, but his will was bound as tightly as if fetters enclosed his wrist and chains pulled him forward. They passed, still in silence, along a narrow corridor to come at the end of it to a corkscrew of a stairway. Because their guide flitted up it, they did likewise. Milo saw an oily drop of sweat streak down the berserker's nose, drip to his chin where the bristlets of perhaps 2 days of neglected beard sprouted vigorously. His own palms were wet, and he had to fight a desire to wipe them on his cloak. Up they climbed, passing 2 levels of the tower, coming at last into a single great room. Here it was stifling hot. A fire burned upon a hearth in the very middle, smoke trailing upward through through an opening in the roof, but the rest of the room, Milo drew a deep breath. There was no Lord's audience chamber. There were tables on which lay piles of books, some bound in wooden boards eaten by time, until perhaps only the rings of metal held them together. There were canisters of scrolls, all pitted and green with age. Half the floor they Gid stepped confidently out upon was inlaid with a pentagon and other signs and runes. The sickly light was a little better here, helped by the natural flames of the fire. Standing by the fire, as if his spongy body still craved heat in spite of the temperature of the chamber, was a man of perhaps Milo's height, yet stopped a little of shoulder and completely bald of head. In place of hair, the dome of his skin-covered skull had been painted or tattooed with the same unreadable design as marked the cloak patch of his servant. Okay. He wore a grey robe, tied with what looked like a length of plain yellowish rope, and that rope was marked with no design or symbol. His right wrist, Milo was quick to look for that, was bare of any copper die-set bracelet. He could have been any age. Wizards were able to control time a little for their own benefit, and he was plainly in a cheerful mood. Yet, as the swordsman stepped up beside Niall, the elf quickly closed in to make a third. Milo, for the first time, felt free of compulsion and constant surveillance. The wizard surveyed them critically as a buyer in the slave market might survey proffered wares. Then he gave a small hacking coug, when smoke puffed into his face, and waved a hand to drive away that minor annoyance. Niall Fengtooth, Milo Yegon, Ingrge. It was not as if he meant the listing of names as his greeting, but rather as if he were reckoning up a sum important to himself. Now he beckoned, and from the other side of the fire 4 others advanced. I am, of course, Istaspes, and why the great powers so fit to draw me into his meeting. He scowled, but if one deals with the power... No, sorry. But if one deals with the powers, it's a two-way matter and one pays their price in the end. Behold your fellows. His wave of the hand was theatrical as he indicated the 4 who had come into full sight. As Milo, Niall, and the elf Ingrid had... I read very... Okay. Had instinctively moved shoulder to shoulder, so did his elf also stand. The battle made heavily. Istaspes indicated a slender figure in full mail. She had pushed her helmet back a little on her forehead, and a wisp of red-brown hair showed. For the rest, her young face was near as impassive as that of their guide. She wore, however, Milo noticed, what he was beginning to consider the dangerous bracelet. Devdine, who puts his faith in the gods men make for themselves. There was exasperation in the wizard's voice, and as he spoke the name of the next. By his robe of grey, faced with white, Devdine was a follower of Landron of the Inner Light, and of the third rank, but a bracelet encircled his wrist also. He gave a slight nod to the other 3, but there was a frown on his face, and he was plainly uneasy in his present company. The bard Wymark. The red-headed man, who wore a skull-filled harp in a bag on his back, smiled as if he were playing a part, and was slightly amused at both his own role and the company of his fellow players. And, of course, gold. Istaspes' visible exasperation came to the surface as indicated the last of the four. That introduction was answered by a low growl from Neil Fangtooth. What more shares a venture with an eater of carrion? Get you out, Scaleskin, or I'll have that skin off your back and ready to make me boots. The lizardman's stare was unblinking. He did not open his fanged jaws to answer Tug. The lizard people used and understood the common tongue well enough, but Milo did not like the way that the reptilian gaze swept the berserker from head to foot and back again. Lizardmen were considered neutral in the eternal struggles and skirmishes of law and chaos. On the other hand, a neutral did not awake trust in any man. Their sense of loyalty seldom could be so firmly engaged that they would not prove traitors in some moment of danger, and this specimen of his race was formidable to look upon. He was fully as tall as Neil, and in addition to the wicked sword of bone double-edged with teeth that he carried, his natural armament of fang and claw was weaponry even a hero might consider twice before facing. Yet on his scaled wrist, as on that of the bard and the cleric, was the same bracelet. Now the wizard turned to the fire, pointed the forefinger. Phrases of a language that meant nothing to Milo came from his lips in an invoking chant. Out of the heart of the flame spread more smoke, but in no random puff. This was a serpent of white which writhed through the air, reaching out. It split into two, and one loop of it fell about Milo, Neil, and the elf before they could move, noosing around their heads, just as the other branch noosed the four facing them. Milo sputtered and coughed. He could see nothing of the room now, or of those in it, but... Alright, you play that one then. Now the problem is... A room, misty, only half seen, sheets of paper. He was... Who are you? A voice boomed through the mist with the resonance of a great bell. Oh, sorry. Who was he? What a crazy question. He was Martin Jefferson, of course. Who are you? Demanded that voice once more. There was such urgency in it that he found himself answering it. Martin Jefferson, what are you doing? His bewilderment grew. He was playing a game. Something Extreme had suggested that they practice up on for the convention using the new QK figures. That was it, just playing a game. No game! The moving voice denied that, leaving him bewildered, completely puzzled. Who are you? Martin wet his lips to answer. There was a question of two of his own for which he wanted an answer. The mist was so thick he could not see the table, and that was not Extreme's voice, it was more powerful. But before he could speak again, he heard the second voice. Nelson Langley. Nels. That was Nels. But Nels had not come tonight. In fact, he was out of town. He hadn't heard from Nels since last Saturday. What are you doing? Again that relentless inquiry. I'm playing a game. Nels' voice sounded strong enough, and yet as if this unending fog muffled it a little. No game! For the second time that curt answer was emphatic. Martin tried to break through the fog. This was like one of those dreams where you could not get away from a never-encroaching shadow. Who are you? James Ritchie. Who was James Ritchie? He'd never heard of him before. What was going on? Martin longed to shoot out that question and discovered that he could not even shape the words. He was beginning to be frightened now. If this was a dream, it was about time to wake up. "What are you doing?" Martin was not in the least surprised to hear the same answer he and Nels had given. The same denial followed. "Who are you?" "Susan Spencer." This was the girl's voice, again that of a stranger. Then came three other answers. Lloyd Collins, Belford, McStain. The smoke was at last beginning to thin Martin's heart. It was Martin Jefferson, and he was dreaming, but as the smoke drifted away in ragged patches, he was not back at the table with Dexter. No, this was the Tower of Istaspes. He was Milo Yegon's swordsman, but he was also Martin Jefferson. The worrying memories in his skull seemed enough for a wild moment or two to drive him mad. "You see?" The wizard nodded as his gaze shifted from one of the faces to the next. Masterly and as evil as the 99 Saints of Salzak, the spirit murderer." The wizard seemed divided too, as if he both hated and feared what he might have learned from them. Still, a part of him longed for the control of such a power, as had done this to them. "I am Susan." The battle-maid took a step forward. "I know I am Susan, but I am also Evie, and these two tried to live within me at once. How can this thing be?" She flung up her arm as if to ward off some danger, and the light gleamed on her bracelet. "You are not alone," the wizard told her. There was no warmth of human feeling in his voice. It was brisk in tone, as if he would get on to other things at once. Now that he had learned what he wished of them, Milo slipped off his helm, let his mail coif fall back against his shoulders like a hood so he could rub his itching forehead. "I was playing a game." He tried to reassure himself that those moments of clear talk within the circle of the smoke were real, that he would win out of this. "Games," spat the wizard. "Yes, it is those games of yours, fools that you are, that have given the enemy his chance. Had it not been that I, who know the lesser and the larger spells of Ulick and Dom, was searching for an answer to an archaic formula, you would already be his things. Then you will play games right enough, his games and for his purpose. This is a land where law and chaos are ever struggling one against each other. But the laws of chance will let neither game full sway. Now this other threat has come to us, and neither law nor chaos are boundaries for him or them, for even yet we know not the manner or kind of what menaces us. We are in a game?" Milo rubbed his throbbing head again. "Is that what you are trying to tell us?" "Who are you?" snapped the wizard, as if he struck with a war axe and without any warning. "Martin, Milo Yegon." Already the Milo part of him was winning command, driving the other memory far back into his mind, locking and barring doors that meant its freedom. Istaspes shrugged. "You see, and that is the badge of your servitude that you set up upon yourselves, in your own sphere of life, with the lack of wit only fools know." He pointed to the bracelet. Niall dug at the band on his wrist, using his great strength, but he could not move it. The elf broke the short silence. "It all seems, Master Wizard, that you know far more than we do concerning this matter, and that also you have some hand in it, or we will not be gathered here to be shown what you deem to be sorcery behind it. If you were brought to this world to serve your unknown menace, then you must have some plan." "Plan!" the wizard near shouted. How can a man plan against that which is not of his word or time? I learned by chance what might happen far enough in advance so that I was able to take precautions against a complete victory for the enemy. Yes, I gathered you in. It, them, are so confident that there was no part ready and waiting for you to play. The mere fact that you were here perhaps accomplished the first purpose toward which the enemy strives, but so little am I in advance of what is to come. Tell us then, follower of Satyrus' ways, the cleric spoke up, what you know, what you expect, and the wizard loudly, harshly, I know as much as those who serve those faceless gods of yours, deaf dying. If there are any gods which is problematical, why should they concern themselves with the fates of men, or even of nations? But yet, I will tell you what I know. Chiefly because you are now tools of mine, and you shall be willing tools. For this has been done to you against your will, and you have enough of the instincts of lifekind to resent such usage. Carl! He clapped his hands. From the darker end of the room moved the messenger who had led Milo and his comrades. Bring stools and drink and food, for the night is long, and there is much to be said here. Only Gould, the lizard man, disdaining the stool, curling up on the floor, his crocodile's noted head supported on his hands, with never a blink of his eyelids, so that he might have been a grotesque stout. But the rest laid their weapons down and sat in a semicircle, facing the wizard, as if they were a class of novices, about to learn the rudiments of charm. Istaspes settled himself in a chair, Carl dragged forward, to watch as they drank from goblets fashioned in the form of queer and fabulous beasts, and ate dark, tug bread spread with strong-smelling but good-tasting cheese. Tug Miles had still aged. He had lost that terrible sense of inner conflict, and for that he was glad. Still I remembered, as if that were the dream, that once he had been someone else in another and very different world. Only that did not matter so much now, for this was Milo's word, and the more he let Milo's memory rule him, the safer he was. The dreams of men, some men, the wizard began, smoothing his robe across his knees, can be very strong. We know this, we seekers out on knowledge that has been found, lost, hidden, and found again, many times over. For man has always been a dreamer, and it is when he begins to build upon his dreams that he achieves that which is his greatest of gifts. We have discovered that it may be entirely possible that what a man dreams in one world may be created and given substance in another. And if more than one dream the same dreams strive to bring them to life, then the more solid and permanent becomes that other world. Also dreams seep from one space-time level of a world to another, taking root in new soil, and their growing, perhaps even to great permanence. You have all played what you call a war game, building a world you believe imaginary, in which to stage your adventures and explore. Well enough, you say, what harm lies in that? You know it is a game. When it is done, you put aside your playthings for another time. Only, what if the first dreamer who invented this world according to your conception gathered unknowingly dream knowledge of one that did and does exist in another time and space? Have you ever thought of that, huh? He leaned forward, a fierceness in his eyes. More and more does this dream world enchant you. Why should it not, if it really is a pale, conscious, filtered bit of another reality? Therefore it gains in substance in your minds, and in a measure is drawn closer to your own world. The more players who think about it, the stronger the pull between them will be. Do you mean This is a hard name to pronounce. I don't know how to read it, I be honest. It's written Yevele, Yevili, I think. Yevili. Yevili asked, that what we imagine can become real? Was not playing the game very real to you when you played it? Countered Istaspes. Milo nodded without tug, and saw that even the lizard head of gold echoed that gesture. So, but in this there is little harm, for you play but in a shadow of our world, and what you do there does not influence events that happen. Well and good, but suppose someone, something outside both of our spaces and time sees a chance to meddle. What then? You tell us, Neil growled. You tell us. Tell us why we are here, and what you, or this other thing you do not seem to know very much about, really wants for us. End of chapter 2. I drink a sip of water. I remember you, I'm an Italian guy, so I am not very good at reading English, but I improve, I hope. Okay. Yeah. Chapter 3. Geese Bound. Okay, sorry, there is some mistakes on the ebook, so some letters, some characters are not right, so sometimes I have to stop and try to understand. So, chapter 3, Yes Bound. Insofar as I have learned, it is simple enough. The wizard waved his hand in the air. His fingers curved about a slender stemmed goblet that appeared out of nowhere. You have been imported from your own time and space to exist here as characters out of those games you have delighted in. The why of your so coming, that is only half clear to me. It would seem that he or it will meddle seeks thus to tie together our two worlds in some manner. The drawing of your heater may be the first part of such a uniting. Neil snorted. All this your wizardry has made plain to you, has it? So we should sit and listen to this? Eustace stared at him. Who are you? His voice boomed as it hurled through the smoke. Give me your name. That command carried the crack of an order spoken by one who was entirely sure of himself. The berserker's face flushed. I am... He began hotly and then hesitated, as if in that very moment some bemusement confused him. I am Neil Fangtooth. Now a little of the force was lost from his deep voice. This is the city of Grey Oak, went on the wizard, an almost merciless note in his voice. Do you agree, Neil Fangtooth? Yes. The heavy body of the berserker shifted on his stool. That seat might suddenly become not the most comfortable perch in the world. Yet, as I've shown you, are you not someone else also? Have you no memories of a different place and time? Yes. Neil gave this second agreement with obvious reluctance. Therefore, you are faced with what seems to be two contrary truths. If you are Neil Fangtooth in Grey Oak, how can you also be this other man in another world? Because you are prisoner of that. His other hand flashed out as he pointed out the bracelet on the berserker's wrist. You were born fighter, a slave to death. You say we are slaves? Milo cut in as Neil growled and plucked fruitlessly at his bracelet. In what manner and why? In the manner of the game you choose to play. Istaspace answered him. Those dice shall spin, and their readings will control your movements, even as when you gamed. Your life, your death, your success, your failure, all shall be governed by their spin. But in the game, the cleric leaned forward a little, his gaze intent upon the wizard, as if to compel the complete attention of the other. We throw the dice. Can we control these so firmly fixed? Istaspace nodded. That is the first sensible question, he commented. They teach you a bit of logic in those dark, gloomy abbeys of yours, do they not, after all, priest? It is true you cannot strip those bits of metal from your wrist and throw their attachments, leaving to luck or to your gods, whichever you believe favor you, the result. But you shall have a warning an instant or two before the spin. Then you must use your wits to go how much of those you can summon. He shot a glance at Nail that was anything but complimentary. Remains unknown. If you concentrate on the dice when they begin to spin, it is my belief that you will be able to change the score which will follow to perhaps only by a fraction. Milo glanced upon about the half-circle of his unsoaked companions in this unbelievable venture. Ingrid's face was impassive, his eyes veiled. The elf stared down, if he were not looking outward at all, at the band resting on his knee, the bracelet just above that. Neil scowled blackly, still pulling at his band as if strength and will could lose it. Goldbat did not move, and who could read an emotion on a face so alien to humankind? Yvonne was not frowning. Her gaze was centered fully on the wizard. She had raised one hand and was running the nail of her thumb along to trace the outline of her lower lip, a gesture Milo guessed that she was not even aware she made. Her features were good, and the skipped tress of hair above her sun-browned forehead seemed to give her a kind of natural aliveness that stirred something in him. Though this was certainly neither the time nor place to allow his attention to wander in that direction. The cleric had pinched his lips together. Now he shook his head a little, more in time. Milo decided to his own thoughts than to what the wizard was saying. The bard was the only one who smiled as he cocked Miles' wandering eyes. The smile became an open grin, as if he might be usually enjoying all of this. We have been taught many things, the cleric replied with a faint repugnance. He had the countenance of one forced into speaking against his will. We have been taught that mind can control matter. You have your spells, wizard. We have our prayers. He drew forth from the bosom of his robe a round of chain on which dual silver bats were set in patterns of 2 or 3 together. Spells and prayers, Istaspace returned, are not what I speak of. Rather of such power of mind as is lying dormant within each of you and which you must cultivate for yourselves. Just when and how do we use this power? For the first time, the bard Wymark broke in. There is some error in the book. You will not have summoned us here, your power in possession. He gave that title a twist, which hinted at more than common civility, perhaps satire. Unless we were to be of us to you in some manner. For the first time, the wizard did not reply at once. Instead, he gazed down into the goblet he held, as if the dregs of the liquid it now contained could be used as the far-seeing mirror of his craft. There is only one use for you, he stated dryly, after a long moment. That being? Why Mark persisted when Istaspes did not at once continue. You must seek out the source of that which had drawn you hither, and destroy it, if you can. For what reason, save that you find it alarming? Why Mark wanted to know. Alarming? Istaspes echoed. Now his voice once more held arrogance. I tell you this. This alien being strives to bring together our two worlds. For what purpose he desires that, I cannot say. But should they so coincide? Yes? What will happen then? Ingrid took up the questioning, his compelling elf stare unleashed at the wizard as he might have aimed one of the deadly arrows of his race. Istaspes blinked. That I cannot tell. No? Yeveli broke in. With all your powers you cannot foresee what will come then? He flashed a willing look at the girl, but she met it as she might a sword in the hands of a known enemy. Such has never happened in all the records known to me, but that it will be far more evil than the worst foray which chaos has directed. That I can answer to. There was complete truth in the statement Milo took. I believe something else, wizard, Dev Dying commented dryly. I think that even as you had us brought here to you, you have wrought that what shall bind us to your will. We have no choice in that matter. Tuggy's eyes were on the wizard, his hands were busy, slipping the beds of his prayer string between his fingers. Ingrid, not their captor host, replied to that. A guess then, he said in a soft voice, but a voice that carried chill. Istaspes made no attempt to deny that accusation. A guess, yes. Do you doubt that I will do everything within my power to make sure you seek out the source of this contamination and destroy it? Destroy it? Wymark took up the challenge now. Look at us, wizard. Here stands an oddly mixed company with perhaps a few minor arts, spells, and skills. We are not adepts. You are not of these worlds, Istaspes interrupted. Therefore you are an irritant here. To pit you against another irritant is the only plausible move. And remember this, only he or it who brought you here knows the way by which you may return. Also, it is not this world, only that is menaced. You pride yourself enough upon your imagination used to play your game of risk and fortune. Use that imagination now. Would Grey Oak, would all the lands known to us be the same if they were intermingled with your own space-time? And how would your space-time suffer? Distinctly a point, the bard admitted. Save that, we may not have the self-sacrificing temperament to rush forth to save our world. What I remember of it, which seems to grow less by the second, oddly enough, does not now awaken me great ardor to fight for it. Fight for yourself, then, snapped the wizard. In the end, with most men, it comes to self-preservation. You are committed anyway to action under the guise. He arose, his robe swirling about him. Just who stand against us, save this mysterious menace? For the first time, Milo dropped his role of onlooker. The instincts that were a part of the man he had now become were awake. Now the strength of your opposition, as well as the referee, might allow that was the rule of the game. It might be that this wizard was the referee, but Milo had a growing suspicion that the opposition more likely played that role. What of chaos? Istaspes frowned. I do not know. Save it is my belief that they may also be aware of what is happening. There are depths enough on the dark road to have picked up as much as if not more than I know now. What of the players? Yeveli wanted to know. Are there dark players also? A very faint shadow showed for an instant on the wizard's face, then he spoke so slowly that the words might have been forcibly dragged from his lips one by one. I do not know, nor have I been able to discover any such. Which does not mean, Weimar remarked, that they do not exist. A pleasant prospect. You can give us some slight assurance that we may learn to control the roll of this. He shook his hand a little so that the dice trembled on their gimbals, but did not move. To our advantage. It is wrong, Neil's deep voice rang out. You have laid the geese on us, wizard. Therefore, give us what assistance you can, by the rule of law which you purport to follow. That is our right to claim. For a moment, Istaspes glared back at the berserker as if the other's defiant speech offered insult. Visibly, he mustered a fierce temper-born response. I cannot tell you much, berserker, but yes, what I have learned is at your service now. He arose and went to one of the tables on which were piled helter-skelter the ancient books and scrolls. Among these, he made a quick search until he located a strip of parchment, perhaps a yard long, that he flipped open to drop upon the floor before their half-circle of stools. It was clearly a sketchy map, as Milo began to recognize, but that weird mixture of two memories to which he privately wondered if he would ever become accustomed. To the north lay the Grand Duchy of Ernst, for Greyhawk was clearly marked nearly at the edge of the sheet to his right. Beyond that dwelled the great kingdom of Blackmoor. To the left or west were mountains scattered in broken chains, dividing smaller kingdoms one from the others. Rivers, fed by tributaries, formed boundaries for many of these. This cluster of nations ended in such unknown territories as the dry steppes, which only the noble riders of Lar dare venture out upon, the few watering places therein being hereditary possessions of those clans. Farther south was an awesome sea of dust, from which it was said no expedition, no matter how well equipped, had ever returned. Though there were legends concerning its lost and buried ship, buried ships, and the treasures that still might exist within their petrified cargo holds. The map broke them, alleging forward. Leaning over the parchment, Milo sensed that perhaps some of this company recognized the faded lines, could identify features that to him were but names, but that exist for them in the grafted-on memories of those they had become. North, east, south, west, exploded Neil. Where does your delving into the whole knowledge suggest we begin, wizard? Must we wander over half the world, perhaps, to find this menace of yours and whatever fortress it has made for itself? The wizard produced a staff of ivory, so old that it was a dull yellow, and the carving on it worn by much handling into unidentifiable indentations. With its point, he indicated the map. I have those who supply me with information, he returned. It is only when there is silence from some such that I turn to other methods. Here, the point of the staff aimed a quick, vicious thrust at the southwestern portion of the map. Beyond the last race of civilization, if one might term it that, represented by the Grand Duchy of Geoff, a place the prudent avoided since civil warfare between two rivals for the rule had been going on now for more than a year, and both lords were well known to have formally accepted the rulership of chaos. The duchy lay in the foothills of the mountain chain, and from its boards always providing, one could find the proper passes. One might emerge either into the dry steppes or the sea of dust, depending upon whether one turned either north or south. Geoff? Divdine spat it out as if he found the very name vile, as indeed he must, since it was a stronghold of chaos. Chaos rules there, yes, But this is not of chaos, or at least such an alliance has not yet come into being. Eastaspes moved to the pointer to the south. I have some skill, cleric, in my own learning. What I have found is literally nothing. Nothing? Ingrid glanced up sharply. So you mean a void? The elf's nostril expanded, as if, like any animal of those woods, his people knew better than Eastaspes might know his spells. He chanted something. Yes, nothing. My seekings meet with only a befogged nothingness. The enemy has screens and protections that answer what a barrier not even a guest-burdened demon of the 4th level can penetrate. Divdine spun his chain of prayer bats more swiftly, muttering as he did so. The wizard served low, but he was certainly admitting now to using demons in his service, which made that claim a little equivocal. Eastaspes was swift to catch the cleric's reaction, and shrugged as he replied, In a time of stress one uses the weapon to hand, and the best weapon for the battle that one can produce. Is that not so? Yes, I have called upon certain ones, whose very breath is a pollution in this room, because I feared. Do you understand that? He thumbed the point of his staff on the map. I feared. That which is native to this world I can understand. This menace I cannot. All not knowledge brings with it an aura of fear. The thing you seek was a little careless at first. Then no powers it called upon troubled the ways of the great knowledge. Enough for me to learn what I already told you. But when I went searching for it, defenses had been erected. I think, this is supposition only, that I did not expect to find those here who could detect its influences. I have but recently come into possession of certain scroll, rumored to have once been in the hands of Angradan. There was an exclamation from both the elf and the cleric at that name. 1,000 years gone! Divdine spoke as if he doubted such a find. Eastaspes nodded. More or less. I know not if this came directly from a cache left by that mightiest of the Norton adepts, but they are indeed redolent of power, and, taking such precautions as I might, I used one of the formulas. The result is Rod stepped again on the map, being that I learn what I learn. Now this much I can tell you. There is a barrier existing somewhere here, in or about the Sea of Dust. For the first time, the Elizabeth croaked out barely understandable words in the common tongue. Desert, yeah, desert ready to swallow any venturing into it. His expression could not change, but there was a certain tone in his croaking which suggests that he repudiated any plan that would send them into that fatal, trackless wilderness. Eastaspes frowned at the map. We cannot be sure. We cannot be sure. In Italian, sure e sure, similar. No? There is only one who might hold the answer, for these mountains are his fortress and his range. Whether he will threat with you, that will depend upon your skill of persuasion. I speak of Leishis, the golden dragon. Memory, the new memory, supplied Milo with identification. Dragons could be of chaos. Such ones hunted men as men might hunt a deer or a forest boar. But Leishis, who was known to have supported law during thousands of years of such struggles, for the dragons were the longest lived of all creatures, must have a command of history that had become only thin legend as far as men were concerned. He was in fact the great lord of his kind. Tug he was seldom seen now, and had not for years taken any part in the struggles that swept this world. Perhaps the doings of lesser beings, or so most humankind will seem to him, had come to bore him. Sometimes she wrote bad for head. I wrote bad because it's written bad, but it's head. The book is not perfect, sorry. Why Mark hummed and Milo cooked a fragment of the tune. The harrowing of Iron Nose, a saga or legend of man, once might have been true history of a world crumbled now into dust and complete forgetfulness. Iron Nose was the great demon called into being by early adepts of chaos, laboring for half a lifetime together. He was intended to break the law forever. It was leashes who rused and did battle. The battle had raged from Blackmoor out over Great Bay, down to the Wild Coast, ending in a steaming, boiling sea from which only leashes had emerged. The Golden Dragon had not come unwounded from that encounter. For a long time he had disappeared from the sight of man. So, before that disappearance, he had visited the depths who had given Iron Nose being. Of them and their castle was left there after only a few fire-scorched stones and an evil aura that kept even the most hardy of the adventurers out of that particular part of the land to this very day. So, we seek out leeches, Ingrid remarked. What if he will have no word with us? You, Istaspes swung to nail, that creature of yours. Now he pointed the staff at the pseudo-dragon, curled against the berserker's thick neck just above the edging of his mail, as if it had turned into a torque. No longer a living thing. Its eyes were mere slits showing between scale lids, and its jaws were now firmly closed upon the spear-pointed tongue. In that creature you may have a key to leeches. They are of one blood, tucked near as far apart in line as a snake and leeches himself. However, now he shrugged and tossed the ivory rod behind him, not watching, as it landed neatly on a tabletop. I have told you all I can. We shall need provisions, mounts. Yvelie's thumb again caressed their lower lip. Istaspes' lips twist. Perhaps the resulting grimace served the wizard for a smile of superiority. The elf nodded briskly. We can take nothing from you, save that which you have laid upon us, the geese. With that part of power lore born into his kind, they appeared to perceive more than the rest of their company. All I might give would bear the scent of wizardry. Istaspes agreed. So be it. Milo held out his hand and looked down at the bracelet. It would seem that it is now time for us to test the word of this and see how well they can serve us. He did not try to turn any of the dice manually. Instead, he stared at them, seeking to channel all his thought into one command. Once, in that other time and world, he had thrown just such dice for a similar purpose. The sparks which marked their value began to glow. He did not try to command any set sum from such dealing, only sent a wordless order to produce the largest amount the dice might yield. The spoon glowed. As they became again immobile, a drawstring money bag lay at the swordsman's feet. For a moment or two, the strangeness, the fact that he had been able to command the dice by thought alone, possessed him. Then he went down on one knee, jerked loose and knotting of strings to turn out on the floor what luck had provided. Here was a mixture of coins, much the same as any fighter might possess by normal means. There were 5 gold pieces from the Great Kingdom, bearing the egg-nosed, ugly faces of 2 recent kings. Some cross-shaped trading tokens from the land of the Holy Lords struck out in copper, but still well able to pass freely in grey oak where so many kinds of men, dwarves, elves, and others travelled. In addition, he saw a dozen of those silver half-moon circles coined in paras, and 2 of the mother-of-pearl discs incised with the fierce head of a sea serpent which came from the island duchy of Mauritis. Yveli, having witnessed his luck, was the next to concentrate on her own bracelet, producing another such purse. The coins varied, but Milo thought that approximately in value they added up to the same amount as his own effort had procured. Now the others became busy. It was Dave Dine who, through his training as a clerk, was best able to judge the rightful value of unusual pieces. Gult had 2 hexagons of gold bearing a flaming torch in high relief. This Milo could not identify at all, until he had their combined wealth. I will say, he said slowly, after he had separated the pieces into piles, counted and examined those that were more uncommon. We have enough, if we bargain skillfully. Mounts can be gotten at the market in the foreign quarter. Our provisions, perhaps best value, is found at the sign of the Peace-Talk. We should separate and buy discreetly. Milo and shall we say you, Ingrid, and Nail, to the Orso dealers, for with you lies more knowledge of what we need. Gould must have his own supplies. He looked to the lizardman. Have you an idea where to go? Sometimes I jump a page, so I have to. The snooted head moved assent as the long, lonely hand picked up coins Dave Dine swept in his direction, putting them back into the pouch that had appeared before him. Unlike those of the others, it was not leather, but fashioned of a fish that had been dried, its head removed, and a dull metal cup put in its place. Milo hesitated. He was armed well enough, a sword, his shield, a bell knife with a long and dangerous blade, but he took of a crossbow, and how about spells? Surely they had a right to throw also for those. When he made this suggestion, Dave Dine nodded. For myself, I am permit nothing more than a knife on my calling. But for the rest of you, again Milo was the first to try. He concentrated on the bracelet, striving to bring to the fore of his mind a picture of the crossbow, together with a photo of balls. However, the dice did not fire with life and spin, and one after another, saving only Wymark and Dave Dine, the bard apparently already satisfied with what he had, they tried to gain nothing. The wizard once more favored them with the grimace of a smile. Perhaps you had already equipped yourselves by chance before that summoned you, he remarked. I will not waste more time. By daylight it would be well for you to be out of Greyhook. We do not know what watch chaos may have kept on this tower tonight, nor the relation of the Dark Ones to our enemy. Our enemy, snorted Neil, swinging around to turn his back on the wizard with a certain measure of scorn. Men under a guise have one enemy already, wizard. You have made us your weapons. I will take care. Weapons have been known to turn against those who use them. He strode toward the door without looking back. His mate's shoulder, with the boar helm riding above, expressed more than his words. Neil Fangtooth was plainly beset by such a temper as made his kind deadly enemies. End of chapter 3. And for today, I think is enough. Yes. Friday, we continue with another 2 chapters, I think. I'm not really sure. It depends on time. So, good evening and to the next time. Bye.